Welcome, everybody. WorldNetDaily is live. We are on the air. Good to see you. Welcome to all those of you watching on Rumble. You know where free speech truly lives, and we appreciate you being there. For those of you on Facebook and YouTube, make sure you already have your Rumble account set up and that you're following us, just in case things are coming. We warn you about that all the time. Folks, we live in a broken country. We have a wide open border, and we have the video, folks. We have the video of the Democrat leader, Chuck Schumer, actually advocating for the citizenship of 11 million illegal aliens. So we're going to show you that. We're going to get into that. Also, we have an update on the Georgia school killer, Colt Gray. Apparently, the FBI has interviewed him or has visited him a year ago. So we're going to get into the details on that. There's a lot going on there. And these Venezuelan gangs, whether they exist or they don't exist, we've got a 911 call from Chicago that we're gonna play for you. Josh and Brian Allman's with us here today. I always have to smile and try and laugh it off, because if I don't, I don't have enough tissue to start crying over our broken country, because it really is serious and it's really sad. And I have to say that at the offset, because I know that the things that we're going to talk about today are truly disturbing.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, great to see you. This country's broken, and the most functional thing that we all rely on is our government, and it is the most broken thing right now. And kind of the theme we went with for today's show, broken country. I think the most glaring thing is that, for the last couple of years, we've all been looking at literally the door left open to the border. And, the Democrats are Joe Biden, eating an ice cream cone going like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what it is. Who could guess what it is, until, of course, Chuck Schumer comes out today and tells us exactly what it is. These nice folks, they need a path to citizenship, and let the Democratic Party be first to say that we should do that, because guess what we want?
Yeah,
we want their votes.
Exactly. And over at WorldNetDaily, we had this article up here where we can see Putin, or however people want to pronounce his name, over in Russia, endorse Kamala Harris, because why wouldn't he want a weak America, right? That's what he's endorsing, and of course we don't expect anything less from that. Even though as news breaks that apparently Russia's has always been pro-Trump, right? They always want Trump. So, Brian, do you think that when it comes to this endorsement of Kamala Harris, that people are going to say, "Oh, well, he's just doing that because he actually wants Trump"? I mean, it's like the mind games that go on, right?
I think there's a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance already on the left when it comes to Russia. They've been saying for almost 10 years now that Donald Trump is a Russian agent, that he's personally instructed by Vladimir Putin to do whatever it is he's doing. So nothing. I think we've reached a point where nothing is ever going to break them out of that mindset, even though Robert Mueller's Russiagate investigation found absolutely no evidence of that. And, here we have Putin saying he'd prefer Kamala Harris, probably because a weak America is good for Russia.
Yeah.
That's just basic international politics. You want your country to be strong and your other countries to be weak. Although our current government seems to want America to be weak too. So, who knows what's going on there. But I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Conservatives will post it and say, look, he's actually supporting Harris, and the Democrats will just ignore it and say, no, Trump is a Russian spy. Right.
Well, we know what the Democrats do say right now. We have this video of Chuck Schumer. This is the Democrat leader. Is he the leader of the Senate? He shared, it's kind of a half and half though there, but they've given it to the Democrats. But so he's the leader of the Senate, and he had a press conference. Let's watch this.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
I mean, you almost want to watch that a couple of times. The ultimate goal for America is to help dreamers, Josh?
11 million, or how many ever there are, which is probably closer to 15.
Well,
or
they've been
18.
using the 11 million number for about 30 years now, so I have to imagine it's bigger.
Might be bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, go, man. What do you think?
Well, so there's a graph that floats around every now and then where they did some surveys on, who is most important to you, who do you have the best opinion of, and for conservatives, it was family and friends are the most important, and then your community, and then your neighbors, and your state, and your country, and it goes outward from there. The one for the graph for liberals was backwards. They prefer foreigners. They prefer people in other countries. They prefer people who are not like them, and they really don't like the people who are, like them and their neighbors. And that kind of explains what Schumer is doing there. He would rather import, however many people from throughout the world, and make them the new Americans and get rid of the old Americans. I know that is supposed to be a right-wing conspiracy theory, but that's exactly what he's saying. These new immigrants, these new Americans, they reliably vote Democrat. They don't have this, connection to the Constitution and the heritage of America that seems to get in the way of the totalitarian plans that the left has for us. So, it's ideal for them. It's not good for us.
No, it's not. It's not. And in fact, Giger Capital, if that's how you say their name, over on X, has this showing that American job loss with immigrant gains. Look at this chart here. In just August, 635,000 immigrants, legal and illegal, gained a job, while 1.3 million native-born Americans lost their job. Now, since pre-COVID, native-born workers have lost 2 million jobs. And all of the net job gains are immigrants. So when you watch the Harris campaign and you watch the aloof Joe Biden talk about how jobs are coming back and we're getting, they're giving them all to the illegals. I mean, and I don't want to say they're giving them jobs like they're all government jobs. I mean, who are the ones hiring these people? What is going on in these in our states?
Yeah, well, people are taking advantage of there being a market of labor, and they're going to get the lowest price. And so Americans are to blame for this as well. We should have an honest conversation with ourselves. This is like cheap labor and drugs. America has a massive appetite for both, and both destroy the country. And people are always going to look, oh, I want the cheapest guy. And especially, oh, we should have a labor boom. This is literally what happened. And also Americans, largely, they don't want some of these jobs. But, if that ever changed, there's nothing we can do. Those jobs are taken.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, you've often talked about how you've noticed how when the founders have founded our nation, that the Constitution was meant for a moral people. And when you take Josh's point about, we have an addiction to drugs in this country, and when you have an addiction to cheap labor, or AKA slavery, those are things that the founders would just look abhorrent upon.
Yeah. Here in my home state of Idaho, we have the debate going on about illegal immigration, but also legal migration, people coming up with green cards to do agricultural work, to work on farms and pastures and dairies. And one thing I've noticed is that the industries that run those operations, they at this point will really only hire people with green cards, foreign workers. They've locked off that entire industry. If a young person, a teenager, wants to get a job, well, they can't, because that's not how the system's set up anymore. For one thing, most of the workforce now speaks Spanish, and if you don't speak Spanish, you're not going to be able to work on that team. So it's like over the last few years, they've changed the way our entire economy works so that certain jobs are locked off to the American people. And I think that graph demonstrates that. You look at that graph, and when did foreign workers start eclipsing natural born Americans? It's right there around 2010, 2011. That's right during Obama's term. President Obama came in promising to fundamentally transform this country. And what better way to transform it than by electing a new people, as they say?
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a great point. Great thing to point out there. All right, well, let's move along because this, again, the things that are happening in this country, they're coming at us from all directions.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, this next clip from Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, talking about the assassination attempt on President Trump, which we're coming up on 3 months ago now, in just a few days, that this assassination attempt hasn't just been shoved to the corner of the internet with some folks that look like you and me talking about this all the time, but but you have sitting senators still asking tough questions and trying to get to the bottom of this. Let's watch this clip.
Senator Josh Hawley's been in contact with whistleblowers and has new information he's going to exclusively share with us here at Primetime. So what now are we hearing from whistleblowers, Senator?
Well, what I've heard tonight, Jesse, is that most of the agents who were there at that rally in Butler were not Secret Service agents. They were, in fact, Homeland Security agents. And get this, most of those Homeland Security agents, the only training that they received was an online webinar, a 2-hour online webinar. And I'm told that about half the time, the sound to the webinar didn't even work. So think about this. The President of the United States, former President of the United States, Donald Trump, is sent out on stage. Most of the people there aren't trained. They're not qualified. They only got a webinar training, and even that didn't work. It is absolutely outrageous.
You guys, I haven't said this in a while. What is going on? Can you imagine? Can you believe this, Josh? That you have and then it just begs even more questions, which you'll get asked is like, why was this rally all of a sudden televised on all the TV stations? Like I said, we're just asking questions here, but that is a huge revelation about the security detail around the president.
Yeah, I think everybody has a view of the government every now and again. If you've ever been to the DMV, it feels like it's just run by a bunch of idiots. But it's getting to the point now where the dots connect, where like they made sure that only the most inexperienced folks will guard the former president who's on the list to be assassinated. So is this like assassination via incompetence? So that, if everybody's like, hey, if we just leave all the doors to the house open and all the lights on, somebody will come steal something. It feels like that at this point.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. I'm sorry, did you have a finishing point?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Brian, when you think about even the point that he just made, like maybe it's just like, let's just throw the incompetency and we can just and everybody can just blame it on incompetency, because everybody likes to just use that rule, never attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetency, right, or something thereof.
Yeah, well, we do have a competency crisis that's pervading the entire nation and all industries. You look at those astronauts that are stranded on the space station now until possibly February. What should have been an 8-day tour is now an 8-month tour because they can't trust the Boeing Starliner capsule. And you look at what Boeing's been doing, their top priority is diversity. Secret Service wanted to increase the number of women employed. And this is not to say that people who are diverse or minorities or women are not necessarily competent. It's that when an organization decides to prioritize diversity over meritocracy or competency, then you're going to lose those things. It seems obvious, but all these, it's like watching 1,000 trains go off the cliff all at once. Our nation built up a very complicated economy, complicated systems, factories and technology. And now we're watching it fall apart because the people who are running it now don't know what they're doing. Secret Service, after John Kennedy was assassinated, we figured they'd fix the problems, and there hadn't been a shooting at a president for 60 years. So we figured, okay, they've figured this out. They've cracked the code. But now it seems they're forgetting that their priority is protecting the president, not hiring a diverse workforce.
Yeah, I mean, that you said it.
It's there. A great point.
You said it there. Okay, well, let's move on, guys, because as those questions seem to be continuing to move on, there was a attorney extraordinaire, Alan Dershowitz, talking about the indictments of Trump, talk about the upcoming sentencing, which I think before we went to air, Brian, you had gotten word, or you saw coming across the wires, that the judge moved the sentencing. You want to update us on that real quick?
Yeah, let me find it here. It's the judge, Juan Merchan, has ruled that Trump will be sentenced on November 26th instead of September 18th. So that means it will be after the election, which, and I'm seeing multiple takes on that. Does that mean that Judge Merchan and whoever is working behind the scenes there, do they think that Trump's going to lose and so it doesn't matter? Or do they think Trump's going to win and they don't want to be, they don't want to have the consequences, whatever they may be, of meddling in the election 2 months before a new president comes in? So I'm seeing both takes. I don't know what's going through their heads, but it is interesting. You wonder if he ever will be sentenced, because eventually this case is going to get overturned on appeal. The Supreme Court gutted most of it anyway. So what's
well, you would think that you would think that as we look at what some of these judges are doing, yeah. But as we noted on that WND article, there is that Alan Dershowitz is really he's upping the banana count on whether or not we are in a banana republic, and so we encourage everybody to go over and watch the video that's embedded there. It's fantastic. It's a really good take. He talks about being an expert on the law. And even he doesn't understand these charges that he was convicted on. So you really have to wonder if this is just hopefully setting up the public to understand that we need to go in and gut the government. We need to gut out the deep state. We need to cut back on all of these departments. It's incredible. What is this image here? We have this we have this other article on WorldNetDaily about Trump saying that Elon gave him the suggestion to do a full audit of the entire U.S. government. This sends a thrill up my leg, to borrow a term.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, Josh?
Yeah. Yeah, Elon, if Elon had a time machine, and maybe he will eventually, it would be so cool to be like, Elon, in 2020, Elon, you had no idea that you're going to be a rabid Trump supporter in 2024. And you're going to talk about running his government and literally auditing all the garbage out of the government. And, I would trust him. I would trust Vivek and Elon to really get to the bottom of it. And the funny thing is that Elon is renowned for working people hard, and he gets results. Americans aren't ready for that, but we sure could use it.
Yeah. Let's watch Trump deliver that news to a crowd, and then we'll get your take, Brian.
Fourth, at the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice. Smart guy. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms.
Come on, Brian. Let's go, right?
Yeah, I remember when Elon brought that up in their Twitter space a few weeks ago, and Trump was amenable to the idea. And now it sounds like he's going for it. It really is amazing to see the coalition forming around Trump, and it's not purely ideological. You have Elon Musk, who was a self-described Democrat just a few years ago. You have Robert Kennedy Jr., the son of some of the most famous Democrats in history. You have a lot of people surrounding him, not because they necessarily agree on all the ideological or moral issues, but they all agree on one thing, and that is that America should be growing and going upward. And it's like that spirit of the country between the Civil War and World War I, where we were just inventing new things and growing, building skyscrapers and bridges and ships and airplanes and automobiles. And I think they recognize that under a Democrat administration, they stand to lose that. It's going to be gutted. It's, that competency crisis I mentioned, that's going to go on steroids, and anything worthwhile is going to be outsourced to other countries. So it really is a coalition of people around Trump who believe in America, and a coalition of people around Harris that hate America. And it gives me a lot of optimism if we can win, if Trump can win, if we can overcome the, ballot, whatever election fortification that they're going to have this year,
Right.
we might be able to actually do some great things.
Yeah. Well, I know for firsthand, some folks that I know are in a conference in San Francisco this week. There was a big tech conference. It was descended upon by a lot of folks from Heritage and the world of MAGA. And so there's definitely is this sort of coalition happening with the idea that innovation and all the things you talked about in the Industrial Revolution, Brian, are going to be happening in the tech world if we can get past this banana republic style tyranny that's befalling us. We saw what happened in Argentina when someone came in with a dramatic take on how the government should be structured and function with all the departments and agencies. This video has probably been shared around when he first got elected. But let's take a look at Javier Milei, the leader over there in Argentina, and his opinion on what should happen to the various departments in that government.
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, afuera. Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social, afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. Se acabó el curro de la política. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
Come on, he's like right out of a casting call, right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean he's like a character, but he's the man of the hour, and we're gonna watch. It's funny to see, like it's not funny at all. Actually, it's tragic, but like Argentina hopefully will start to recover. They say it already is, and like if you're like a liberal Democrat and somehow CNN's not working in your house right now and you're watching this stream, that probably gave you anxiety to think who's gonna run all those things.
Yeah.
And the truth is the people that have those jobs don't do those jobs, so there might not as well be those jobs. I think we should do that here. Hopefully Elon will do that.
Yeah, it's so true. Like the Department of Education is not run by they don't have schools. The kids don't show up to the Department of Education to learn. And the idea that we can't have even a public school system without a federal Department of Education is laughable. And that goes for the rest of the 30 other odd departments are out there that you just pointed out, Josh. Brian, go ahead. You had something.
I was just going to point out that when Elon Musk took over Twitter, the first thing he did was fired 80% of the staff. Because beforehand you'd see these videos that people would make, these young people, millennials, coming into work at Twitter, and their entire job was sitting in meetings and having lunch and going to the getting wine out of the dispenser, and it didn't seem like they were doing any work, and it seemed to be the case. He fired 80% of the workforce, and a bunch of newspaper outlets came out and said Twitter's going to die now because he fired all these people. And obviously that wasn't the case. He was able to figure out who was actually doing work, who was actually necessary. And to have that kind of perspective in our government would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So we'll definitely keep a watch on that. I know all of you folks out there will be doing the same. Let's go to this another heartbreaking story out of Georgia. This is the mugshot of Colt Gray, who was arrested, 14 years old, who is being charged with murder and manslaughter after his killing spree at a school in Georgia. We are also getting word that his father has now been arrested, a 56-year-old, I believe, Colin. This is Colt. The father is Colin. And he's been arrested and charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. Guys, this is incredible that he's being charged with the actual crime as well, because he wasn't the one who showed up to the school to do the shooting. So any insights from y'all on these charges here at this moment, Brian?
Oh, I don't know where to start with this story. Obviously it's tragic, and I always hate seeing pictures of like that of the shooter when he was a child, because obviously you're born into a certain environment with certain parents, and it sounds like this boy's home life was not great at all. But at that age, I've got 5 children, and I look at them and think that their future is limitless. And at some point, a series of decisions by his parents, and then eventually by him, led to this point. I remember that there was another case a year or two ago where the parents got charged for a child who shot up a school because they let him have a gun. Obviously, the left is going to try and make this about gun control, say that the problem is guns, when really the problem that we're seeing in almost every single one of these school shooters is some sort of depression, some sort of psychological issues. They're almost always on some sort of medication. And I think that speaks to a deeper issue in our country. Why are so many young people sick and depressed and mentally unstable? And of course, there's the LGBT issues that have been cropping up lately with these school shooters as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot still to unfold and to learn about this particular individual's history and stuff. But Josh, again, we another detail that came out of the story, which again doesn't seem to be unique, is that the FBI or law enforcement visited him and his family about a year ago. And after some disturbing messages showed up on a chat board about wanting to shoot up a school and things like that, he was visited and it was denied that he made those claims online. But that put him on the radar, I guess. And again, I mean, the internet is full of people. There's millions and millions of kids and troubled youth and folks that, unfortunately, the way Brian described, that are in this country that can be making those remarks online, and you can't quite possibly follow and tail everybody. Certainly, if their crime hasn't been committed, but you have to wonder, what is it about an FBI visit or a law enforcement visit that just doesn't? I don't know that. I'm kind of at a loss. Like, is that supposed to prevent something, or does it mean something more?
There's some kind of disconnect. I know our theme is that today shows the country is broken, but it is broken all the way down to the individual level now. This family, I was reading about this family. It's really sad. The mom got addicted to drugs. There was stories from the neighbor of the kids coming over to the neighbor's fence asking for food because the mom had locked him out of the house. This is happening like in normal neighborhoods right around us. And it's sad. And a lot of people say, like, what can we do? But it literally leads to death of people around us when we don't intervene. And culture does not intervene anymore, especially if there's some unknown element. Like, why did law enforcement go visit? Even you interview the classmates, and everybody kind of knew that this kid was very, very disturbed. And then the dad made just a massively unwise decision to give him a rifle for Christmas. That's just, it's almost like everyone was blind to the reality. And reality, when it finally snaps into view, is really awful. And sadly, it's usually involves the death of innocent folks.
Yeah, I mean, we're all parents, we're all dads sitting here, and sometimes you get caught up in that mentality where you're like, oh, that wouldn't happen to my kid, or you see other parents, be surprised that their kid did something bad at school or something, or treated another child unkindly, and you go, well, how that couldn't happen? You have this sort of like prideful ownership that everything you're doing is perfect, but here, the family, we have a screenshot here of a family member posting messages on Facebook and other social media talking about, I believe this was the sister of the mom, like the killer's aunt, who talked about how, and you can go to WorldNetDaily and read these here. I'm not going to go through them, but just talking about how the home was broken, and that the mother had been in and out of jail, like we had mentioned, was a drug addict, and so this isn't the best environment for a young man like Colt here. But Brian, to the point of just kind of having this cognitive dissonance between whether or not your child should or shouldn't have a rifle based on all of the things that are going on around them in a troubling home is again another disturbing element that we have to deal with.
Yeah, obviously, the boy is 100% responsible for his actions, but what are all the actions that led him there? And I'm trying to think about this. You've got a lot of families that give their teenagers guns. It's part of growing up in many parts of the country. It's something that you just do and you learn, you're taught how to handle it properly and safely. First person that comes to mind is Kyle Rittenhouse. He had an AR-15 that night in Kenosha, and he didn't kill innocent people. He shot 3 people, killed 2 people who were in the midst of attacking him. Didn't kill anyone else. He, contrary to what the left likes to say, he didn't go there trying to kill people, but when faced with his own potential death, he, rose to the task. And then you have, this boy who followed a completely different path, came from a completely different environment. And I think one thing that we need to continue to emphasize is it's not the gun that causes this. It's gun is just a tool, and it's in the hands of a person who's going to make moral decisions. And unfortunately, this person decided to, kill innocent people.
Yeah. We have one more tweet here that we wanted to share with you. If we can bring that up on the screen. Josh, you want to walk us through this here?
Is this the, so kind of in the same theme, guys. You remember all the talk in Aurora, Colorado? Like, oh no, there's nothing going on. The city can't figure out what's going on. And yet we see footage of guys in a hallway with rifles. And now ICE has confirmed that there are subjects that have been arrested. And this is probably the gentlemen that were in the apartment complex. Or let's see this connection. This is connection to a shooting. But there are Venezuelan illegals in the country. And it's unfortunately a lot of them in Colorado. And I heard, Matt, I've actually seen this in a different program, that for some reason, a lot of people, when they were coming across the border, they were getting tickets to Colorado, to Denver, and then they were also going to Aurora. And I saw this in a completely different program, which was tracking people that were coming from Venezuela through the Darien Gap, all the way through the border. They were riding the train through all of Latin America or Central America. And then they were getting here, and they were all being given tickets to go to Denver. And because it is kind of a strange thing. Why are Venezuelans in Aurora? But they're also in Chicago now.
Yes, and we have it's a very strange 911 call, because let's listen to it, because I have a question about it afterwards, but let's listen.
Yeah.
Unit 10-3, I'm citywide, person with a gun, 6124 South King Drive. Caller says 32 Venezuelans are trespassing the building, showing guns in the courtyard, and they have motorcycles in the courtyard as well. All stairwells are filled. Nothing further, zone clear. Hey, I'm sorry, you headed over to the ShotSpotter or to the 6124 and King for the migrants?
On King Drive.
All right, 10-4. There's another available unit to arrive at 310. We had multiple calls. First with the gun, 6124 South King. Also came over to disturbance, large gathering. Could be 32 Venezuelans trespassing in the building property, showing guns in the courtyard. They have motorcycles in the courtway, all stairwells filled. And nothing further.
I mean, incredible. Brian, what's your take on that?
Well, my initial take was that they need to fix their AI caption transcription.
Oh, yeah. Don't read the... Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's... going back to where we started this conversation, a broken country. And the most obvious symptom of a broken country is broken borders. As Donald Trump says, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. It's like America's just become this playground for everyone, whether it's other countries such as Russia or China or Qatar, trying to influence our public opinion and our elections, or whether it's Venezuelan gangs just moving in and taking over apartment buildings. It seems completely absurd. It's like the sort of thing that local police should be able to handle real quick. It's the sort of thing that should be blocked at the border, obviously, but
right.
we're not doing that. But it seems like not only are we being overrun in multiple ways, we've lost the willpower as a nation to do anything about it. I don't know where we go from here. I guess, we elect President Trump and then we start deportations, because otherwise we're not going to have much of a country left.
Yeah. Josh, I'm trying to figure out, how does everybody know that these are Venezuelan? How do they have flags? Are they saying Viva la Venezuela? Like, how do we know they're Venezuelan gangs and not just, our country's full of diverse populations from all over the world.
It's a good point, Matt.
Yeah.
They do seem to know, and apparently there's some kind of giveaway that people know, oh, these are Venezuelans. Maybe the locals know, but it seems to be clear. And they have this bizarre tactic where they en masse go to an apartment complex. They shake down as many people as they can, and then they leave. Which is so foreign to us in America. Like, this seems like an old mobster tactic or something that we haven't seen in 100 years. But it's happening. And imagine them being at home watching and seeing people debate that it even happened.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. And let's point out two things. One, as you pointed out in the beginning, these folks went to Denver first, as that's where we kind of heard this story break. Now it's happening in Chicago, these roving gangs with rifles and firearms. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Chicago has one of the strictest gun control laws on the books. Yeah. And Colorado used to be a very friendly gun state until it went blue. And I imagine has fallen down on the ranks of a gun-free state. Brian, do you want to give any speculation if Venezuelan guns showed up to, I don't know, Idaho?
Well, I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised. They seem to be going everywhere. They cross the border. They're given, in many cases, debit cards and plane tickets and cell phones, and then they go do their thing. And it would be foolish to think that they're not organizing in some way to do something, whether it's shake down apartment complexes or, forming gangs or militias or whatever. But, your question about how do you know they're Venezuelan, that got me thinking. We're entering a situation where information is very hard to come by, accurate information. On the left, they're saying that, oh, this doesn't exist. They're saying that these Venezuelan gangs, there's no such thing. They're not there. It's a hoax. Even though we've got the 911 calls, we've seen pictures. But then on the other side, I think conservatives are getting a little jumpy every time, somebody hears a, Spanish spoken in public. They think, oh, there must be illegal immigrants. And I think it really goes to our broken country where we're fracturing. You can go out in the public square and it's very diverse, which, maybe that's our strength. That's what we're told. But at the same time, it really erodes public trust because we don't know what people are talking about. We don't know who's who. We don't know who our neighbors are. And we can't even communicate with our neighbors in many cases. And that leads to mistrust. That leads to assumptions, and it leads to places that are not good.
Yeah, it's very true. We need to encourage more assimilation, not in a Borg fashion, but in a cultural fashion. I think, I've moved around my life, from a different city, even different neighborhoods within your own town. And the first thing that I always want to do is like, well, what do the locals do here? What do we do? How do we engage? How do I, where I want to, I don't want to go to the big box, store. I want to go to the mom and pop store. I want to know my neighbors. And there seems to be a lack of encouraging traditional migrants who move here to do that sort of thing, especially when it comes to the language and just the cultural habits. This diversity, this emphasis on keeping things diverse and keeping things segregated is it's so foreign to the idea of America to begin with. Well, gentlemen, I think that wraps it up for today. Brian, I'm so glad you joined us here on this Friday. Where can everybody follow you and your work? Because you do great work out there.
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter or X or whatever you call it at Gem State Brian. That's Gem State. That's Idaho's nickname because of our natural resources and pretty rocks that we find in the ground.
Fantastic. All right. And I'm True Matt Edwards on X, but Josh, we want to make sure that people are following us on our Rumble channel and X, and you need to warn everybody about the censorship that's here.
Yeah.
It's already here.
If you made it this far, we're going to put up the Rumble banner. We want you to please like and subscribe. We need you to subscribe over at Rumble. We get a ton of views, but we need you guys to hit that button that says subscribe. That way we know who you are. And like, please. And of course, we're growing our Telegram channel. which is going great. Okay, that, we have a lot of hope for Telegram. We think it's going to still stay free. We know Rumble is still free. And absolutely, please follow us on X. And that's where you're going to see like the most breaking news. Even while we're on the show here, we're breaking news on our X channel at worldnetdaily.com as well. That's where everything is for the main platform, for all of our articles, and of course, our videos.
Fantastic. All right, folks. Well, have a great weekend. On behalf of Brian and Josh and I and the rest of the crew here, thank you so much for watching. God bless.